As most of us know, our public schools have never received adequate state funding, but since the recession several years ago, education has suffered severe cuts. Funding is now at the level it was 5 or 6 years ago, while costs of educating our children continue to rise. And the recent revenue shortfall that we've been reading about is likely to take us to pre-2009 funding levels. We have Mr. Joel Grogan with us tonight, who is a member of the Staunton City School Board, to tell us about education funding and what Medicaid expansion could mean to schools and children in our community.
Thank you. I look around on the stage and in the audience and see many educators, which is heartening. I've only been on the school board a couple of years, but the challenges in that short time that Bea just referred to, we're at the funding level, even with this budget, we'll be behind where we were in 2009. One of our schools in Staunton is struggling to make sure that it doesn't fall prey to some radical measures or even takeover. Fortunately, the organization that came out of our legislature, that our school board and 80% of the school boards in the state proposed, a takeover super school system that was proposed by our former governor, was just declared unconstitutional. And this budget that they're going to pass tonight has one of the amendments that is to cut a few $1 million out of money that was allocated to run that super school system was going to take over failing schools in the state. They had the legislative committee that prices out bills and does investigations. It's called a JLARC committee, Legislative Review Committee, and they said that in so many words, this ill-fated idea was doomed to fail and cost the state a lot of money for poor results. I want to thank Virginia Organizing and the Virginia Education Association and the other organizations that are in the coalition driving these meetings tonight. There are about 10 of them around the state, these vigils. When they were set up, we had no idea that our legislature would be meeting today, and if it goes as it seems like everyone's predicting, we will probably have a budget on the way to the governor tomorrow. It will include, because of this shortfall, which is upwards of $2 billion due to revenues that have dropped that the budget was based on, anticipated revenues. This amendment tonight will cut out, just in education, $120, $130 million. Many of you probably saw that article in the Waynesboro paper by the Waynesboro High School teacher who's leaving, a teacher of the year, from all the signs, I don't know him, but from all the signs of the awards and the way he expressed himself and what he's done in a few short years, it's going to be a great loss. And money was only a small part. He said he's taking home $100 more than he did when he started over, I think it was 6 years ago. You know, I wish the organization that represents school board associations had not decided to stay away from this Medicaid issue. We have lost about, well, we're losing it at the rate, saw somebody had a sign here, $5 million a day. We're up at $800 million since, if we had gotten in at the beginning, that this state would have now, 800 million. That would have eliminated this gap they didn't even know about that I'm talking about that's going to hurt the school systems and also teacher salaries. The organization that represents school boards, the Virginia School Board Association, when I raised this issue on a conference call, said we have to stay away from that because we are nonpartisan. We board members are nonpartisan. You can't run as a party's nominee for school board. But as you've heard much more eloquently than I could express tonight, it's not just a political issue. It's a moral issue. And it's an economic issue. We are gonna give, if we don't get this expansion, give the money the federal government would be given to Virginia to other states. That's what's happening as we sit here tonight, as the clock is ticking on another $5 million that's gonna flow somewhere else. This sense of false economy about saving money. When I was walking in here tonight, a gentleman stopped me. I don't see him out there. He's in the background of this crowd when I came up. And he said that they would rather people pay through taxes indirectly, $500 for an emergency room visit, than $125 if they had coverage that they would get from a physician. One of the myths about the Medicaid expansion is that, and I'm afraid the School Board Association fell under this, is that it is a partisan issue. Well, there are about 10 or 12 states, governors and legislators are Republicans who have either found a way to expand their Medicaid or are on the way to do it, and that the optimism is high that they'll do it. That is a myth. In this state, we do see a Republican-controlled House of Delegates, and our own delegate from this area, as vocal as any of them, opposing that. It's probably more of a battle since a traditionally Republican or conservative organization as the State Chamber of Commerce favors Medicaid expansion, and that goes to the job element. And you heard the figure, was it 33,000, I think I've seen, jobs that this would create. So it's a myth that it's a partisan dispute. And even though we are represented in, at least in the city of Staunton, by a Republican state senator and a Republican delegate, our senator has broken ranks with the conservative branch of his party to come up with another path, another way to do that. And even though we are likely to go home and hear on the 11 o'clock news that a budget has been passed with no Medicaid expansion in it, the battle is not over. And I left a message with the delegate that represents me to relook at that decision and lead for what is right rather than doing what the most conservative part of his party would have him do. So there are financial reasons. One of the reasons used is a political reason, and that is that the federal government will probably renege on the promise that it has given Governor McAuliffe that the state could withdraw. Even a Supreme Court decision affirms that. It would be unconstitutional to prevent that happening. So that is another argument that goes away. I hope that when that budget comes out tomorrow, if all works as the talking heads say it will, that those of you who came out tonight and those that you know who share your beliefs, or maybe you can help convince after tonight, that the battle for Medicaid expansion is not over, and that, as Bee said in an email today, thanking people for coming out, she noticed another political situation that's been referred to here tonight, that a very positive person was able to shock all the political pundits in the country by beating candor with a positive attitude. So I'll pass on what Bee said in her email. Let's have that same attitude, even though the numbers seem to be against us, even though Puckett is probably going to be replaced by a Republican and there's going to be that gap. Let's be positive, and let's continue holding our delegate and the other delegates in this general area, hold their feet to the fire and ask them, as the other speakers have said here tonight, to do the right thing. Thank you.